Well, thank you so much, Caroline. I appreciate that. As Caroline said, my name is Ed. This is Kate. And first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. We really appreciate it. And thank you for those of you who are in attendance. And hopefully we can provide some information today that might be valuable and useful for you. And welcome to the folks at home, too. So today we're going to talk a little bit about PCH and especially the relationship between All Saints Church and Princeton Community Housing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about affordable housing in general and how it applies here in Princeton. And feel free, this is very informal, so if you have a question, just put your hand up and we'll use that kind of format. Very, very informal. I was commenting to Caroline before, the last time I was here is probably about 10 years ago. What I've lost in hair, I've gained in experience. So hopefully my presentation will be a little better than it was 10 years ago. So first and foremost, our mission and vision, and we also have a handout on the chairs too, which gives a little bit more information, but we're going to go through these boards here and talk a little bit from those. But our mission is really threefold. We provide affordable housing, we manage it ourselves, we do our own property management, and almost as important as the first two is that we advocate for affordable housing. So we want to make sure, as Caroline said, that there are opportunities for people not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's really what we're all about. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Welcome, come on in.
Welcome, come on in, hi.
Our vision is hopefully one that you all would share, is that we want to make sure Princeton continues to be a vibrant, diverse place where people of all income levels can, again, have that opportunity to thrive and survive and thrive. So you want to talk a little bit more?
Yeah. So Princeton Community Housing, just a little bit about us as an organization. We are community-based, meaning that we were founded from the get-go as really kind of a grassroots effort. And it was founded by committed Princeton residents who were largely affiliated with organizations and institutions like All Saints. All Saints was one of the founding community partner organizations. There were 18 initially. And in hindsight, it is kind of as an origin story. I often comment about how it's not something you'd hear about these days. It's pretty remarkable and in many ways kind of miraculous that it was founded in 1967. And if you think about it, in 1975, 50 years ago, they opened the doors of Princeton Community Village. They constructed 230 homes. Consider that. In this day and age, the speed at which that happened. 7 years or 8 years. It's astonishing. So the story is an extraordinary one from the beginning. So it was from the get-go. It was really a group of people who said this matters.
And these institutions lent credibility to PCH because PCH was really not an established organization. So the houses of worship, the institutions in town gave that credibility, backstopped the organization.
Yeah. So we have an extraordinary beginning. So we feel like as a legacy, there's much we have to continue to carry forward for this vision and mission. So as Ed mentioned today, we build, we manage, and we advocate. We own arguably 4 communities, but then we also own homes that are what we would call gentle infill that are scattered within the community. We have a handful of those. But all in, we own just shy of 491 affordable rental homes. And Ed will talk a little bit more about what affordable means when we're talking about that. So all in, that's about 1,100 people here in town who are connected to Princeton Community Housing, which is 3.5% of the population. So it's a good number of people. And as Caroline noted, we have something we call the PCH difference. We, several years ago, brought on board social workers who are employed by PCH, and their role is to connect our residents to the remarkable the infrastructure within Princeton. We are fortunate as a community to have this kind of social capital, and that there are many, many other institutions and nonprofit partners with whom we collaborate, and we're able to connect our residents to those existing support services. So, and Ed is much more clear. He's careful to point out that we are not supportive housing, which is an important differentiation.
Right.
We're all independent living. People are living independently in our homes, but the social workers on our team are connecting to them to whatever they might need if they're facing any kind of hurdle or difficulty in their lives. And our goal, our mission, is to keep people in their homes. That's the ultimate goal here, right, which factors in as we talk a little bit more about the affordable housing landscape in general and what it's like to be a mission-driven organization committed to this work, and maybe some of the other kinds of models out there which are a little different. So, but that gives you a little bit of a snapshot of who we are as an organization to this day. So we have we have a lot of volunteers, as Caroline alluded to. We have actually 2 boards of directors. We have our original board, which we call the Community Board of Trustees, which is really the founding board, which we described. Mm-hmm. And then in 2016, there was another board formed, in part with a goal of being, for lack of a better word, a little more nimble, forward focused in terms of building more homes. So the ability to raise money, go out into the larger community to find the resources so we can continue to add to what we own already. So it's a lot of volunteers, though, which, as many of you know, when you're working with a lot of volunteers, sometimes things can go a little slowly. But the plus side of that, of course, is that we continue to maintain our tradition of being community-based. We were very much part of the community. So just a little bit about housing in general.
So some of you may wonder, well, what does affordable mean? So before I answer that question or give you more information about that, let's kind of walk through what some of the realities are right now.
This is updated, by the way.
Yeah, but here's just a sense of what the realities are, the conditions right now in Princeton. So the fair market rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in New Jersey is about, let's say, $1,500 a month. So in order for someone or a household to be able to afford their rent, assuming that you would not want your rent to be more than 30% of your income, someone would have to make almost $58,000 a year. And based on a 40-hour work week, that would work out to about $28 an hour. So right now, the minimum wage, or it was at the time we did this chart,
about a year ago. Yeah, it's a little bit more, but
it's not much. It's a little bit more, but you can see the disparity between what someone would have to make and what the minimum wage is. So unless you want to spend your week working to make that up, you'd have to work probably close to an 80-hour week to be able to make that work. You can't really afford the average 1-bedroom apartment in New Jersey. So here are some of the salaries, some of the other professions that we all rely on in our daily lives to be part of a community. A teacher, a line cook, a school bus driver, cashier in a retail store, a restaurant server, a home care aide, very important person. These are all the essential workers that we all talked about during COVID. Well, as you can see, none of those folks make the kind of income, 57, almost 58, to be able to afford an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment. So what we're trying to do as Princeton Community Housing is really provide those opportunities for people to utilize only 30% of their income for rent, for housing costs, and allow them to have the funds available to do other things in their lives that we all would love to do and generally do because we have that income. That's a big number, 30%. The government, I know we all have different feelings about the government these days, but the government has defined housing that is affordable when a person or a household spends no more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether it's rent or if you own a home, all the costs that go along with owning a home. So that is the definition, and that's the definition generally that we also use because PCH, Princeton Community Housing, we do receive some government funding to subsidize what we do, and our rents are generally set so that no more than 30% of a person's or a household's income is defined for rent.
Mhm.
So, does anybody have any questions at this point on that definition? Yes, sir.
Is your government funding state or is it federal?
It's federal. So we have 4 communities right now, and 2 of them are communities that receive a direct subsidy from the federal government in order for us to make up the difference between what people can pay in rent and what it costs to actually operate the community.
Now, do you think any of that is at risk under this president?
It would appear that it could be. I know that's a very vague answer, but it's hard to predict. Yeah, but I can tell you that we've already had some experience with delayed funding. That wasn't necessarily due to the change in administration or the executive orders, but it's something that we're very concerned about, yeah, because it's unpredictable right now. I don't think anybody could predict what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it is a concern of ours, yes, definitely.
Yeah, that in general is just, it's very unsettling right now.
Yeah.
Very unsettling for all of us.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I observed when I joined Princeton Community Housing a couple years ago, and I had, in my prior career here in Princeton, been with the YMCA for 12, I guess all in, I was there 15 years. And one of the things I observed almost immediately is when you're going out to the larger community to advocate for affordable housing, it has an emotional reaction that was very different than when I would go out and talk about the YMCA and the work that the Y does. It's a very different, people's perceptions of what affordable housing means to them runs the gamut. It can be very emotional for some people if they feel that, they don't want their community to change, so they're reluctant or resistant or outright, just are against it as a whole. So that was, to me, very something that I observed immediately that made it a little trickier, in large part because there are so many myths that exist around affordable housing and misunderstanding of what affordable housing is trying to accomplish. These are the kind of classic tropes that you hear more often than not. The increased crime, property values decline, and then, of course, rising taxes. And here in Princeton, there's a lot of information, opinions thrown around, and it is really challenging if you're a resident to try to discern fact from fiction, what's emotion, what's genuinely truthful, as we're all experiencing in general, but more so, I'd say so, in the affordable housing area. So New Jersey is a little unique in that we are, as a state, the only state in the union with a constitutional obligation with the Fair Share Housing Act, is that, which basically says that every community, every municipality within the state is obliged to do their fair share, which honestly is pretty equitable sounding, where there are states in the union where it takes the position that no, we should put all the market should bear it, and it should go only in the areas where there's poverty, and we're fine, we're affluent, we're going to keep it just the way we like it, and you will put it elsewhere. And of course, and not that it's perfect here in New Jersey, because of course New Jersey has probably the most segregated school system in the country. So it's not perfect by any means, but at least there's a commitment there to try to figure this out. And Ed can, I think, do a better job of explaining the law itself. And then maybe you could talk a little bit about the third round and the fourth round.
Sure. I don't know if I can do a better job, but I'll try. So some of you may have heard of the Mount Laurel decision, right? That's a legal decision that happened in the mid-1980s. And essentially that resulted in that constitutional obligation that every municipality has to provide its fair share. So there have been several, and before I continue with that, if anybody's really interested in getting into the weeds, there is a book out there by Professor Douglas Massey from the university, who wrote a book, I think it's called Climbing Mount Laurel. And it's a story specifically about the community in Mount Laurel that is the namesake of the law. But the community was really a struggle by Ethel Lawrence to be able to stay in her community and live in an affordable place. And Mount Laurel at that time really opposed that idea. And the book is about how that opposition was met, but also about how the community was successfully realized and how it is not increasing crime, depressing property values, and resulting in all sorts of terrible things.
Right.
In fact, it's actually a place where people are thriving and people don't even know it's there. But going back to Mount Laurel, there have been, subsequent to 1985, there have been several rounds of obligation that each town has to provide in terms of its affordable housing obligation. We're now in the fourth round. So Princeton and all the other municipalities in town have gone through 3 prior rounds. And as Kate suggested, not every town in New Jersey has been complying with it, but that's another subject. But
Yeah.
Princeton generally has been. And the communities that you see going up around you, Avalon and the Alice down here by the shopping center, the 25 new apartments PCH built on its property, and many others, those are all third round projects or properties. So now Princeton has a fourth round obligation, and I believe the town council approved they went along with the obligation that was set by the state, and that number is 276 new credits. I use the word credits now.
Yeah.
Princeton can satisfy that obligation of 276 by not just building 276 apartments. They could build certain kinds of apartments that will give credit. They're under the rules. There are many different manifestations of how you can achieve a credit. One, for example, would be if a nonprofit organization works with a municipality and the municipality puts in a certain amount of money or land, that the town could get 2 credits for every unit that's built. So there are all these sorts of formulas.
But and I'm going to interrupt, but the new apartments building that are being built, only a few, I don't know what percentage, how many units of those apartments will be affordable. So the
Right.
developer, let's say there are 100 units, 20 perhaps might be affordable.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are a couple of basic ways to build affordable housing. One is called inclusionary, which simply means that if you're building 100 units of housing, 80% of that would be market rate and 20% would be affordable. That's a typical percentage. And then what we do, Princeton Community Housing, we do 100% affordable. So anything that we build is, all the units are going to be affordable. Both processes or both methods have their pluses and minuses, but I think Princeton is seeking a balance of those 2 approaches. And what the inclusionary, one of the downsides of the inclusionary methodology is that you're getting more units in order to achieve you're getting more units overall in order to achieve the affordable units. And one of the things that we didn't put on the list here about the myths of affordable housing is density, the D word, right? People are a little afraid about the character of the town changing because there's more and more units. And you heard a lot of that when Avalon and the Alice were approved, and now people are seeing it in reality as the 2 anchors of that shopping center are now pretty big buildings. So ideally it should be a balance, and I think that's what Princeton is trying to do. So I think I covered that.
You covered it. It is not a simple topic.
There's another one in terms of what people don't like is 100% affordable is a bad thing.
Right.
I mean, so many of them think back to the tenements in New York City, that 100%, that's what they think, even though that's been decades. And if they look at what we have, they'll see it's totally not true. People's perception, we still
Absolutely.
say, oh, you can't have 100% affordable. They're going to be ghettoized. I think this is one of the terms.
Yeah,
Recently,
that was
at an
unfortunate.
institution.
Yeah.
And so that's something else that Princeton Community Housing is trying to do, is educate our community. What does it really mean, and what are the true effects?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is still a preconceived notion that when you say affordable housing, you're thinking of, the things we've all seen from the 60s, these big tall towers, and that was then, this is now, and we're doing things much differently. And I invite all of you to visit our communities. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best way to see what I'm talking about, what we're talking about, that you would be hard pressed to call it affordable housing if you didn't know that's what it was. It's not luxury housing, don't get me wrong, but it's darn good. So.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there are models all over the country that are shown to work very well. But it's, as we know, it's very hard to change minds if people don't see it with their own eyes.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing effort to educate.
The other challenge that comes up when a developer such as Avalon builds something, within 30 years, those units then turn to market rate. So we've
Right.
lost 30 units. Whereas Princeton Community Housing,
We're
it's
forever.
perpetuity. It's always
Yeah.
going to be affordable.
Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah.
true too. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So,
And not every for-profit developer will offer the PCH difference or those supportive services either. I'm not trying to badmouth developers,
Right.
because we're a developer too, but everyone's different. So.
and I think another headline for PCH and what we're trying to convey to folks is that, it's wonderful to do good things for people who are in need. Absolutely. We all agree that that's really essential to our humanity. But there's also some self-interest here. Communities do far better when there's diversity with socioeconomics. Communities thrive. They do far better if you have a range of people residing in a community. And we read about it, we see it already, that you have very, very affluent communities that are virtually gated, and yet they don't have anybody. The teachers don't reside in their community. They have to live hours away. That's not doing anybody any good. So, we take the position very much that affordable housing is what is going to make a community stronger. Some of you may know Sheldon Sturgis. He's a Princeton resident. He's part of Princeton Future.
Future, yeah.
And he is, I guess, trained as an urban planner. Is that his background?
Yep.
But anyway, he had a quote that affordable housing allows a community to take care of itself. And I think we very much resonates with us in our belief system there. And it really is overall, it's about economic gains, job opportunities. Communities can just access better overall health. When we have all of our folks from all walks of life residing in the same location, for instance, it was interesting. I was at the doctor not too long ago, and having my just usual annual dermatological visit, and lo and behold, I'm chatting with the doctor, and there was the physician's assistant with her, and I was updating the doctor about where I was working, and the woman who was assisting her said, "Oh, I live there. I live at PCV. I love it." And of course, the doctor's office was right down the street. She'd worked at the doctor's office for probably, I think she said, like 8 years. So I can assure you that she, having lived or living right nearby and being able to raise her family here in town and be 5 minutes away and have the flexibility to be available for her family, all of that contributes to the health and well-being of an overall community.
We have a member now who is associated with Penn Medicine. In one of his presentations, his speeches, was the fact that when you're living in a safe, affordable place, that your overall health is better.
That's right.
We have to think long-term. We think of insurance. If we had a healthier community, our insurance would be impacted. We only look at short-term. We need to look
longer term.
A healthier community means financially healthier for us.
Right.
So, and overwhelmingly, in talking to Princeton residents, one of the reasons people love this community is its diversity.
Yeah.
And if it goes away, that I think for many people is something that's feels very sad and a loss to the community. It's what we value. So diversity, and again, the fact that affordable housing can bring stability to families, as Caroline was sharing with Maslow. This is essential, and if Princeton wants to be a community that's for all in terms of, and be the healthy community that it should be and has been for, for ages. So, anyway.
I think another point.
Yeah.
A positive is when you get kids into, say, the Princeton school system. I mean, that's a
Huge
Yes.
trajectory change. Yep,
As opposed to some of, the lower income areas.
That's
where
right.
Their school systems are not as well funded, don't have the opportunities.
yep, yep.
Et cetera. I think that's a big thing for the younger generation.
Dramatic trajectory change in
Yeah.
people's lives. And we see it all the time there too.
Yeah, and we didn't mention that we've actually been working with the YMCA for many years at Princeton Community Village. We have a preschool program there and an after-school program there, and that adds to that range of educational, opportunities. So, so a couple of things that we can talk about. Now we're kind of going into the broader area of affordable housing, and what can we do as a community? As we'll get to, specifically what you might be able to do, but what are people in general trying to do to help increase the opportunities for affordable housing in municipalities? And Princeton actually is doing a lot of the first item, which is address outdated zoning policies. Princeton has just recently adopted a new master plan, and Kate referred to one of the principles of that master plan called gentle infill. So Princeton is trying to address the concern about density, but also the obligation to provide affordable housing within the fabric of neighborhoods, which is really important too. So what the Princeton is doing is adopting has adopted a new master plan to, again, give these types of opportunities, not just the things that we see with the Alice and the Avalon projects, but again, things that can happen within the fabric of a neighborhood or a community without dramatically altering the character of that community or neighborhood. So that's really important. Forging public-private partnerships to combat the high costs of building. Again, that's another thing that Princeton has done. So a lot of good things coming from this municipality. We, Princeton Community Housing, have worked with the municipality many times over the years to move forward on different initiatives and projects, and we hope to continue to do that. There's also a way that you can make financing easier. That's always going to be a very difficult, especially in today's climate with the change in administration. We're hopeful that with New Jersey, we have a good governor today, but that could change too. There is an affordable housing trust fund, a statewide affordable housing trust fund that is a very important source of financing seed capital and development funds for a lot of affordable housing projects. And we're hopeful that will continue going forward. We have taken advantage of those funds as well as many other nonprofits in New Jersey to, again, build new affordable homes. Another strategy that really works well in terms of that gentle infill is adaptive reuse. Some of you may be familiar with that term, where you take a building that exists and you convert it to a different use. In this case, you might take a firehouse, yeah, or a public building that's not being utilized, or some other type of structure that is no longer being used for its original purpose. And it could be in a neighborhood, or it could be in a very key area where there's access to transportation and other amenities. So that could be converted into affordable housing. And the beauty of that is the structure's there, the utilities are there. A lot of the costs that you get when you build a brand new building are already taken care of. So that's another thing that Princeton is encouraging. And then the last thing is something that we continue to work on, again, with the municipality, and that's providing people who apply for affordable housing the kind of counseling that they may need to get their affairs in order. Not everybody, again, has a stellar credit history. Some people need to get some help, and there are certified counseling agencies out there that can provide that type of education and information to enable people to get their credit history in line, so that they do become eligible for affordable housing when the time comes up on the waiting list. So these are strategies that we're working with, and again, it's good to be in a community like Princeton where there is an incentive built in, not just an obligation, but an incentive to do the right thing and to try to achieve the diversity that the town kind of always is proud of.
I'll just point out, Ed,
Oh.
I'm sorry, just skipped over the one about the workforce
Oh, I
building. I just want to share that what's interesting is the feedback we get from Princeton merchants. Overwhelmingly,
Yeah.
they are struggling with their own workforce, where to get folks, they have to travel such far distances now to work for their businesses as the clerks, at the registers, work in, so not too long ago, we had a visit from Cory Booker, this was about a year ago, and was with local business leaders just downtown. And that was the number one thing we heard about. And I honestly, I was part of that meeting and I was kind of shocked. I was really surprised to hear that was their number one frustration, that they are struggling to find staff and they can't have their staff nearby. And that's a real challenge. So that was interesting. I would not have expected that.
Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, I had, maybe you could expand a bit on the topic of impediments to building housing of different sorts, including affordable housing. I think a lot of the impediments business generally in New Jersey, it's one of the worst states in the union to do business in for a lot of reasons. But just coming down to the micro level of All Saints, in the last decade, we've had a couple of projects, one of which is this room, and we had another one. And the time it took for very, very simple approvals to make small changes not only extended the project in a matter of years, but also significantly increased the cost.
Yeah.
And this is a micro example compared to some of the projects you've been involved in.
I'm sort of grinning because I completely identify with that. For example, when we recently opened in August of 2023, the new 25 apartments at Princeton Community Village, the timetable from the very first thought in our heads to that date was probably close to 4.5 years, right? Getting all the approvals that we needed to get. We had to go through the planning board. We had to get approvals at the state level for the funding and the financing. The building department was not able to review the drawings, so it had to go through the state. The state didn't talk to the local municipality about certain things. Yeah, we spent a lot of time and money, and that's probably why I have less hair too, because it just was, it's a very frustrating process.
I would think that is a major impediment to developing.
And that's true not only in New Jersey, but I read an article about California, and they were saying again it was like normally 5 years for a simple project, and of course to have the funding that sustain that long, have the interest, and have the support. 5 years. For not anything elaborate.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know, that's something that will be changed because more powerful players are lobbying for it. Because that process, that 4.5-year timetable doesn't just apply to affordable housing or housing. It applies to, like you said, and from a project that is very simple to the ones that are more complex. And I didn't even mention the Department of Environmental Protection. That's a whole nother, if you're in anywhere near wetlands or any of those things. So look, I mean, I think we're all grateful to some degree that the state is being diligent about how things go in and what they look like, but it is a little over the top, definitely. So.
And the other, I just want to mention too, in the building sector, one of the things I've read quite a bit about is we do also have challenges for costs for construction because our country isn't interested in any kind of real modular approach to housing. We're very resistant. There's a very powerful lobby. So, there are models out there worldwide where really lovely housing can be built at considerable less cost and time. But we are resistant in our country for all the reasons I think we know. So but little bits, germs, little sort of model projects are starting to bubble up in some states, but it's pretty tough because there's just such a strong headwinds in terms of preventing that. So certainly we're all, I'm I'm not doubting that we're all feeling a little overwhelmed at the moment in general, so I don't want to add more to your plate. But if this is a topic that you care about and something you'd like to learn a little bit more about and get involved with, we encourage you to, learn more. Read, as you read articles now, maybe as you're, learning, just reading town topics about this project and that project, this is helpful in understanding the ins and outs of all of it. We are certainly all in favor of connecting to legislators, which is very helpful, though I suspect they're hearing a lot lately. Certainly as you talk to your friends and neighbors, talk about this as a topic, that this is something that if it's important to you. Obviously, join organizations, support PCH, consider following getting our newsletter, keeping up with what we're up to. Again, we're always glad to chat with other people. So we're always glad to come to somebody's home, to other institutions, to talk a little bit about affordable housing and PCH and what we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir. I was just going to mention, I mean, we're doing two things. We're always looking for opportunities to provide more homes, new homes.
Yep.
And we're also looking for opportunities to enhance the homes we already have, whether that's the physical plant or whether that's the programs that we offer. Mm-hmm. So we're not a stagnant organization in any way. And then, as we mentioned at the top, we want to advocate for other ways to address this issue, not just through housing, but through other, municipal supports or statewide supports. So we're always an active organization, and if people want to help us, we're happy to have that. The gentleman behind you had a question first, and then we'll get to you. Yes.